Marco Rubio went on Fox News and stated that Iran's leadership has an apocalyptic view of the world, totally ignoring Israel's messianic view for greater Israel. And he really says that it's Iran that has this weird dispensationalist view for, apocalypse, the end times, all of it. So take a listen to this, and then I'm going to show you some clips of Netanyahu. Take a listen.
Unfortunately, the hardliners with an apocalyptic vision of the future have the ultimate power in that country. That tension has always existed there, always. I think it's pronounced. Now that you have a supreme leader whose credibility is still untested, whose access is questionable, who has not been seen visibly, publicly, has not spoken, we have not heard his voice. So I think that creates tension in their system as well. Unfortunately.
So I'm going to show you a few more videos of him as well. Now, for reference, this guy's a staunch neoconservative. People kind of just see him, and then they go ahead and they see J.D. Vance, and they put them on the same category, and they're simply not. Even within the Trump administration, this guy is one of the most neocon people. He might not have the same voice as Lindsey Graham, but so neoconservative, so pro-war. So now I want to show you guys this video here of Netanyahu, because we keep hearing this thing that the Iranians have an apocalyptic view of the world, that they somehow want to, I don't know what, start a global Muslim caliphate. That's what they always say. Meanwhile, we never talk about the fact that Israel has a messianic view. And not just greater Israel, but really where Jerusalem is the capital of the entire planet, and where everybody prays to Jerusalem, and everybody kneels down and is subordinates to Jerusalem, and there's a prophet that comes down, and it's the new Jewish Messiah. This is a pretty apocalyptic end-time sort of view that Netanyahu apparently believes in as well. Or maybe he's atheistic, but he entertains the idea within his party. So take a listen. This was back in the 1990s. And he says, I came to ask for your help in both areas, personal and political. This is Rabbi Schneerson, by the way. Since we last met, many things have progressed. What hasn't changed, however, is that the Messiah still hasn't come, Messianic. And I know I mispronounced it, but it's the Messiah. So do something to hasten his coming. We're doing it. Apparently it's not enough, since many hours have already passed today and he's still not here. But there's still a few hours left in the day. So try still for today. I mean, this is a pretty apocalyptic view. And the thing is, whether or not Netanyahu believes in it, people within his party do believe in this. People, excuse me, people like Itamar Ben-Gvir, people like Smotrich, they do believe in this. They do believe in a greater Israel where the Messiah comes back, they rebuild the third temple, and the entire world subordinates to Jerusalem. This is their belief, and they're actively trying to create the events that are, they're basically actively trying to elicit this. All right, so I have some more clips of Marco Rubio that I want to show you. But you know what I realized also that I think we simply don't talk enough about, and this is something that I've really started to notice the past year, is that disproportionately, every Cuban American politician is incredibly neoconservative. Cuban Americans in general, by the way, generally are disproportionately, incredibly staunchly pro-war, staunchly neoconservative. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I really started to recognize, oh wait, there's Ted Cruz, there's Marco Rubio, and I think there's 5 or 6 Cuban American politicians in Congress. 5 out of the 6 are all pro-war neocon Republicans, like staunch neocon. So I started looking into it. I might have to do an entire separate video on this, but it really starts to kind of connect the dots for me. A lot of the diaspora that left from Cuba, especially the older Cuban generation, are incredibly anti-communist, anti-socialist, like staunch capitalists after they left because of the revolution. So they already have that mindset, and a lot of the times, they impart it on their family, obviously. I mean, every family does. So there's this staunch pro-war rhetoric, neoconservative belief system, and Marco Rubio is a perfect example of that as well. So, and I already showed you guys this clip here. He states other clips as well, stating that the Strait of Hormuz is equivalent to an economic nuclear weapon for Iran, which this part I do agree with, but I come at it from a different perspective. But take a listen to this and let's talk about it.
It's great to see you here, not on a balcony with a vest on.
Absolutely, great to see you. What do you see as the main roadblock to an agreement with the Iranian government?
Well, other than the fact that the country is run by radical Shia clerics, that's a pretty big impediment. The other is that they're deeply fractured internally. And I think that's always been the case, but I think it's far more pronounced now. The best way to understand Iran is you have a political class. Now, I think, look, people talk about moderates and hardliners. They're all hardliners in Iran. But there are hardliners who understand they have to run a country and an economy, and there are hardliners that are completely motivated by theology. The hardliners that are motivated by theology are not just the IRGC officials, but obviously the supreme leader and the council that surrounds him.
Do you believe that Iran's new supreme leader, Mustafa?
So I really have to stop here because I keep hearing everything he says, and then I think about Israel, and I'm like, what is some? You know, it's not just this clip. So a lot of things that Marco Rubio says, I don't know if he's intentionally rage baiting or not. Every single thing that he just said could be applied to Israel, by the way. Every single thing. But let's just keep listening for sake.
Does he have the clerical credentials to actually act as supreme leader? Is he actually making the decisions, or is there somebody standing in his stead who's basically controlling 90% of it and is the one actually making decisions on his behalf? We don't know the answers to these questions.
Reports do indicate Iran has offered to open the straits, but they want to delay conversations about their nuclear program. Would this be acceptable to the Trump administration?
Well, again, I'm not going to speculate about the president's decision-making on this matter. Suffice it to say that the nuclear question is the reason why we're in this in the first place. If Iran was just a radical country run by radical people, but, you know, it'd still be a problem. But they are revolutionary. In essence, they seek to expand and export their revolution. Not just what they do in Iran. That's why they're with Hezbollah in Lebanon. That's why they supported Hamas. That's why they supported the militias in Iraq. They don't just seek to dominate Iran. They seek to dominate the region. And imagine that with a nuclear weapon. Look what they've done with the Straits. Great example. The Straits is basically the equivalent of an economic nuclear weapon that they're trying to use against the world. And they're bragging about it. They're putting up billboards in Tehran bragging about how they can hold 25% or 20% of the world's energy hostage.
So, okay, perfect. Now, I'm glad that he's finally talking about this. First off, let's break it down. What's the first thing he said? He started talking about Iran in the region. And then I'm also going to show you some, I want to show you also some emails back, I think in 2014 or so, of Larry Ellison, you know, the billionaire Larry Ellison, the largest private donor to the IDF, how he basically vetted Marco Rubio, by the way, when Marco Rubio was running for presidency. I'm going to show you guys that later. But back to this. First thing he says, he goes on and he says that Iran seeks to have massive influence in the region, as if not every other country in the region, but more importantly, especially Israel, is trying to do exactly that. The difference between Iran and Israel is that Israel hijacked a global superpower to bomb the entire Middle East and Africa, basically North Africa. That's what Israel did. Israel hijacked U.S. foreign policy to start 7 wars. That's what Israel did in the early 2000s, totally hijacked U.S. foreign policy. Did Iran do that? Oh, Iran is backing Hamas and Hezbollah. What the hell is Israel backing? ISIS. I mean, they're all U.S. designated. They're all U.S. designated terrorist groups. That's how they're all listed in the books. But for some reason, and this is what's so insane to me, ISIS is the most deadly terrorist group on record. The most deadly. You will never find one Muslim or one Arab I've ever met, ever, have any sort, like, they're disgusted by it. They totally condemn it, like, totally, all the way through and through. But for some reason, Israeli policy never even targets them. Literally, it's Israeli foreign policy not to even mess with ISIS. Not to mess with them, but to actually provide medical aid. Okay, so that's the first thing, and I've shown you guys a lot of those documents where the Israelis in the Golan Heights will take in ISIS fighters and treat them and then release them because they destabilize the region and they fight Hezbollah. And Hezbollah and ISIS are rivals. Hezbollah actually protects Christians in southern Lebanese towns from ISIS. So that's a whole separate thing, though. So just when it comes to the region, who's controlling the region, who's trying to influence the region, who's backing terrorist groups in the region, it always falls back on Israel. That's the first thing. And then what's the second thing he said? Oh, this economic nuclear weapon. I've said this from the very beginning. I said that, Iran basically has an economic nuclear deterrent. So he actually is right there. Iran has an economic nuclear deterrent. I personally think I think that there needs to be a counterbalance to Israel, whether Iran or elsewhere. I think there needs to be a counterbalance. Just so you guys know, we have to really put things into perspective, because we're in 2026 and most people don't remember how things were, or I wasn't even alive then. Most people don't even read history or knew how things were back in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 50s, in the 40s. You think it's just Iran in 2026 that had an economic nuclear weapon when it came to oil? What the hell did the oil countries do in the 70s because of Israel's existence? They decided to do an oil embargo on the U.S. in the 70s. And what did it do? It led to oil prices in the U.S. quadrupling. And they had the power. And then the CIA, of course, overthrew the leadership in Saudi Arabia. What I'm saying is Iran needs a nuclear deterrent right now. It needs the level of a nuclear deterrent. This is from Iran's point of view, geopolitically. Now, whatever your point of view is, that's fine. What we can agree on is that Iran views that they need some sort of massive deterrent. Because if they don't have a deterrent, the United States and Israel will do whatever they want to them. The only reason the United States and Israel have to even negotiate with them right now is because they have a deterrent, which is the economy. And that's really pissing the United States off, because they have to negotiate, and they'd rather not negotiate. They'd rather just basically create a failed state. But it's hard to do that when you know that they control something that is so damaging to the economy. That's why it set Trump off. That's why it sets Marco Rubio off. That's the only reason they're negotiating. Now, it's the only thing that's a counterbalance right now to Israel in the Middle East. The only thing. If Iran is gone, there is no counterbalance to Israel. It's basically total Israeli hegemony of the Middle East. And guess what? If you think Iran is really the issue, they've already started. They're already starting to put the propaganda out for the next war. The next enemy, which is Turkey, which is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, investments in Zionist firms and everything else, put that aside. Saudi Arabia and Turkey, especially Turkey, are going to be the new enemies after Iran. It's already all laid out. So if you think that it's just Iran that's the problem, if you think it's just Hamas or Hezbollah that's the problem, they're going to keep creating new enemies. Marco Rubio especially loves to do this, just completely in bed with Zionists, totally in bed with Zionists. So I'm going to show you the documents with Larry Ellison. Let me see if there's just one more thing with Iran, with Marco Rubio I wanted to show you, though. Let's play this right here.
Special Envoys Kushner and Witkoff here in the United States.
Let me go ahead and play this for you guys. Oh, I realized I didn't share my screen. There we go. Let's take a listen to what he has to say here.
He said just that on Saturday, the president canceled the talks in Islamabad, Pakistan, keeping Special Envoys Kushner and Witkoff here in the United States. He said just 10 minutes later, the Iranians made a new offer on paper, and it was better.
If what they mean by opening the straits is, yes, the straits are opened as long as you coordinate with Iran, get our permission, or we'll blow you up, and you pay us. That's not opening the straits. Those are international waterways. They cannot normalize, nor can we tolerate them trying to normalize a system in which the Iranians decide who gets to use an international waterway and how much you have to pay them to use it.
On Saturday.
So cool. That's great. The only way you can solve this problem is through diplomacy, which they're hellbent not on doing. The only way you can solve this problem is through diplomacy. Now, keep in mind, the United States, I mean, these protests that were happening in Iran prior to all of this starting, where they say 40,000 people died, and they won't really explain where they got the number from. They'll say 40,000 people died. Trump brags about the fact that the United States armed and sent in like 60,000. 60,000 is what Trump said to Fox News on a phone call. 60,000 weapons into Iran. Weapons, bazookas, literally bazookas were found, rocket launchers were found confiscated from these protesters to destabilize the country. So, I mean, we've tried every single thing we can do. Now, this is what I wanted to show you. This was shared on Dropsite News last year. Larry Ellison vetted Marco Rubio for loyalty to Israel. These are hacked emails reveal. So this is insane. From Ron Proser to Larry Ellison. I think Ron Proser, he was the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations in early 2015. Now, again, this is a 2015 email. Hi, Larry, please send me his speech. Thanks, Ron, in relation to Marco Rubio. Again, Larry, hi, I really enjoyed spending the afternoon and evening with you. Time flies. Thanks, big hugs. Larry said, to Ron Proser, again, the Israeli ambassador to the UN. I had a great time. P.S. I'll tell you how dinner goes with Senator Rubio. Back in 2015, Larry Ellison was meeting Senator Rubio, who's considering running for office. Ron Proser responds, "Hi, Larry. How was the conversation with Marco Rubio? Did he pass your scrutiny? Did you have a chance to talk about Israel? I'd love to chat. Would love to chat. Big hugs." And Larry Ellison responded back on April 30th of 2015, stating, "Hi, Ron. Great meeting with Marco Rubio. I set him up to meet with Tony Blair, who's currently on the leadership of the Gaza Board of Peace. Marco will be a great friend to Israel." Larry Ellison. Now, keep in mind, Larry Ellison, of course, is the guy who's now one of the largest shareholders of TikTok. He went ahead and bought TikTok bought TikTok to rewire the algorithm to make sure that you love Israel. CEO of Oracle, constantly monitoring your data, making sure it knows every single thing that you're up to. This is almost like verbatim exactly what he said, to make sure that you're on your best behavior. And Marco Rubio is in bed with these people. This is who this guy is aligned with. Now, I would say, and it's pretty easy. A lot of us, we use just the money as a scapegoat. We say, oh, they're fully bought out through and through, Marco Rubio, and then they'll show how much money he's gotten from the Israeli lobby. He has gotten millions from the Israeli lobby, but we also have to recognize that sometimes these people are just truly, one, they're corrupt. They take the money, and then they're truly actually believing in this psycho ideology. And Marco Rubio, this warhawk neocon ideology, he actually believes in it. Same thing with, they genuinely believes in it. Nikki Haley, I think she genuinely believes in the same exact thing. They genuinely believe in wanting to start wars because they actually get off to it. They actually enjoy it. Same thing with Ted Cruz. And he's even more of a religious zealot in that sense. Marco Rubio, I don't think his neoconservative stance comes from as staunch of a religious point of view as it does for somebody like Ted Cruz. More so because of his ideological background and his parents' background as diaspora from Cuba. Regardless, doesn't matter because it ends up being the same exact thing when it comes to people dying and bombs being dropped. So that's it for this video, guys. If you found it interesting, I'd appreciate it if you click the subscribe button below and give it a thumbs up as well. It helps me reach more people like you. Also, if you haven't yet, definitely consider joining as a member. If you see the comments and you see people with the John F. Kennedy emoji or the parrot emoji or the censored emoji or whatever else, the Palestinian flag, kafia, you can get those emojis too, and you can type them in the comments. You can have them on your username. If you click the join button below next to the subscribe button, it has a little join star. If you click that, you can get those emojis as well, and you get to see member-only videos from me. I do pretty often here. So I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye, everybody.